is the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Show with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Game Day Show. We got 3 games here on a Friday that we were talking about. This starts at 5:30 Eastern time. Definitely a weird start time here. Milwaukee, Indiana at 5:30. We have the Clippers in Dallas at 8. We got Minnesota, Phoenix at 10:30 for the 3 games here on this main slate. James, been a pretty interesting start to the NBA playoffs so far. Game 3s here underway for these matchups. What are your thoughts? And let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been I would say up until a few nights ago, it hadn't been too memorable. I mean, the first 11 teams won outright on their home floor. Indiana finally gets the first upset. That snowballs into Kawhi Leonard's return, turning into an upset on their home floor of Dallas. Now we're back at home. We're flipping the series. This slate's interesting because it involves 2 teams that stole a game on the opposing team's home floor.
All right.
Doesn't look like Giannis is going to be back. May not be Chris Middleton in this game either. He's listed questionable. Phoenix suffered another potential loss with Grayson Allen. He's listed questionable. He hurt his ankle for the 2nd straight game.
Right.
And they just don't look good. And the Anthony Edwards quote of, well, yeah, they got Kevin Durant, but we got Jaden McDaniels lives on and forever. As Jaden McDaniels quite literally might have been the best player in the series so far through 2 games, just with how well he's defended and his offensive output last game. So it's an interesting 3-game slate. I wish it wasn't starting at 5:30, but then again, who am I to really criticize basketball from 5:30 on? Because then the weekend slates are 1 p.m. starts and then final games at 10 p.m. So Christmas slate's the same way. The more basketball, the better. This postseason's heating up. Again, teams holding their home serve. Orlando Magic up 35 in game 3 going into the 4th quarter. Philly Knicks, that just seems like every game's going to be final possession. We don't know. I mean, so yeah, excited to get into this 3-game break.
All right, we got Milwaukee. First thing we'll talk about here, you mentioned already the honest news here, doubtful. Chris Middleton now listed questionable. We were already in on Dame Lillard, 51 fantasy points last game out. He had obviously 48 in game 1 when he had 35 actual at half and then didn't score another bucket, but rather consistent and now may need to be leaned on even more if Chris Middleton isn't available.
It'd be hard for me to imagine he's not the highest roster spend up of the slate if there's no Middleton, no Giannis. I do expect Middleton to play, and this feels kind of like precautionary because he left that Indiana game and played 36 minutes. So it's not like there was where he left and didn't return.
Right.
I would assume if this is a regular season game, he's sitting. But 1-1, you lost the game on your home floor. You're going to be without your best player again. Now, I assume after playing 36 minutes, Middleton's good to go. If he's not, obviously Dame is that much better of a play. But Dame is fine. Dame's an elite play if it's just him and Middleton regardless. And honestly, if Middleton suits up, I'm interested. I mean, he was only 6 for 14 in game 2. Peripheral stats were still great. I do think that kind of hurt him offensively a little bit because you saw in game 1. I mean, he was their best player. I mean, for 4 quarters, Dame was their best, obviously, for a half. So yeah, I mean, if Giannis and Middleton are out, Dame is as surefire as a play as it gets.
And then, of course, even if Middleton is in, Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, Patrick Beverley, all guys were comfortable playing here.
Yeah, and honestly, Lopez has kind of outplayed Portis through the first 2 games. He was really good last game. I think when you start seeing, all right, the rebounds are what they are, right? We've seen this with Brook Lopez for
the worst rebounding 7-footer in the league.
Forever. Since his Brooklyn days, since before that.
He was a 2010 guy in Brooklyn, and then all of a sudden, he stopped rebounding. I don't know what happened.
But the scoring and the shot blocking has kind of returned for Brolo here. And you're also getting him at a $1,500 discount off Bobby Portis. Obviously, Portis has the eligibility, and I think you and I both would agree that Portis has the upside more than
Sure.
Brolo, but I'm okay taking the discount if this is the version of Brolo that we're going to get. They're playing about the same amount of minutes. Patrick Beverley, same thing. Like, he's going to play mid to high 30s, probably plays 37 to 40 minutes. And if that game is a little more competitive down the stretch, was he great offensively? No, but he's very good again everywhere else. And if
Yeah.
he makes a couple shots, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's going to have 30 fantasy points at 40.
Yeah, we saw him against Orlando during the regular season. He had a 4-for-6 shooting game, but he hit all 3 of his threes and he finished with 35 fantasy points, right? Like,
Yep.
if he goes 3 for 5 and 3 for 3 from 3 there, you're looking at 30 plus fantasy points, not 20. So agreed there for sure.
I don't think there's anything else.
Barring a Middleton injury, right? Because then Beasley or Connaughton
Yes.
would be value, but other than that, I agree with you. Going on to the Pacers here, all under 9K. Disrespect to Pascal Siakam because that man has been on another one in these 2 games. 36 and 13, 37, 11 and 6 in the 2 games. Milwaukee has 0 answer for Pascal Siakam without Giannis being available to them.
Yep, lock and load. Dude, 16 of 23, 15 of 25. I mean,
yeah,
like, obviously efficiency, he's like not that efficient, but he's a 54% shooter on the regular season. Just constantly getting to his spots, right? Not really settling for threes. 8 threes of 48 shots. Like,
yeah,
he's taking 40 shots. Talk about like of the league, how the league has become all about taking threes. He's taken 40 of his 48 shots in the first 2 games of the series inside the arc, and has 37 and 36 actual. He's the minutes. I was very like,
we were getting chirped whenever we'd in our chats whenever we would talk about Siakam, secondary player, not an impact guy, like
he wasn't playing minutes. Well, he wasn't playing minutes, and now we're getting full capacity. He is far and away the best play. And no offense to obviously Halliburton, who I will say, if we're talking props,
why isn't he shooting?
He's not shooting. Well, so Siakam is, and Miles Turner is, and we saw the game 1 from Turner, but then game 2 for Miles Turner, all he needed was the shots to fall, and he had a monster outing. I think Halliburton, like, per dollar, is probably their 3rd best play, and I'm not saying I wouldn't get there because I would. They're home.
Right.
I'm sure it's going to be a fun environment in Indiana for this, but like, Siakam's per dollar a better play right now. I mean, that's not. I feel like that's not even a debate. And then if this is the version of Miles Turner we're going to get, why would we rank Halliburton above in front of him?
Agreed. Would you play McConnell, Neesmith, any of the guys below them?
Yeah, I mean, Neesmith, 36, 37 minutes. He's the best on-ball defender they have. Really, they're only, like, him and Nembhard are their 2, like, the 2 guys that you can be like, hey, you could go guard people. And, so I do think Neesmith is fine at $5,100, 30 fantasy points, 7 assists, definitely a little bit of aberration, right? That's a little bit of an anomaly. He's averaged 1.6 assists per game on the year, and he had 7. So that's not expected to happen again. You could definitely get there. McConnell's going to play 16 to 18 minutes. And in those 16 to 18 minutes, there's a 30-point ceiling and there's a 14-point floor, right? So tournaments for sure. Nembhard has been really good in terms of minutes. 8 for 11 shooting from Andrew Nembhard.
Right.
Does not feel repeatable. But 4 rebounds, 3 assists, repeatable. So he's 4,300. He's going to play 30 minutes in the starting lineup. I don't hate it. And then, like, Jalen Smith, you probably don't need to get to. I will say, I was kind of interested in Obi Toppin game 1. He was really bad. Short hook, they took him off the floor. Game 2, Obi Toppin was really good. 21 minutes, 11 shots. He had 9 points and 8 rebounds and a steal. On a slate where Dame might be a team to himself, we don't know about Kawhi. I mean, I think I suspect Kawhi would play. But on a slate that he's officially listed questionable, and we have Luka on one side, and then we have Phoenix at home. We have Edwards.
Need
Like,
value.
you're going to need a punt in there at $3,400. Knowing that Obi Toppin has at least 21 minutes in his like range of outcomes, 17 shots in 2 games off the bench is not bad. 13 rebounds. So just a thought for a punt play there.
Okay.
Also, Ben Shepherd, 23, classic because Ben Shepherd, 23 minutes off the bench for Ben Shepherd. Not really that interested, but it's worth mentioning. 23 minutes is 23 minutes for a guy $3,200 in the playoffs.
For sure. Clippers Dallas next matchup here. You mentioned we had the return for Kawhi Leonard. 35 minutes out of the jump, just was good to go. Was good to play. No problems there. And as you mentioned, nearly were able to pull off that upset 93-96 loss for the Clippers there. What are you looking at in this matchup for LA?
So, I mean, everything is weird for the Clippers because Kawhi looked like somebody who hadn't played basketball in a while. And that's because they literally flat out told us he hadn't taken any contact until that game, which is why I had no thought of him playing. I was like,
Right.
why would you get him the contact in the 2 days in between game or from game 2, have him sit, and then you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to get him contact before Friday. He played, they lost, he didn't look good. He was fine defensively in terms of like counting stats, but he just looked really rusty. Obviously, like they're all priced really nicely. James Harden was great for a second straight game in terms of DFS. Paul George was the third option, like he's been for a lot of the year when
Kawhi's been there.
and he's been like the spot up shooter when Kawhi's there. You can, shake your crystal ball and hope you pick the right guy. Obviously, the answer is like, well, if Kawhi is healthy, he's the answer because he's the cheapest of the 3. He's the best of the 3.
Yeah.
He's the champion of he's won.
The 35
titles.
minutes makes you think he's healthy. Now it's whether or not that game shook the rust off for him.
Well, it's like even Tyronn Lue said it like, yeah, I mean, he still hadn't taken any contact before that game. So like things were what they were. And he's like, we're getting him contact in practice the last couple of days, which probably should have been like, I don't know, maybe that should have been before the game. But if Kawhi is going to play those minutes, I would say I would rank him first despite the rustiness because he's just there. He's what they need to win and to go into win a championship, right? Like it's Harden and Paul George could be as good as they can or have been, but like the championship starts and ends with Kawhi Leonard. So I would play probably Leonard, Harden, George. That's probably how I'd rank the top.
Okay. Zubac continues to be good in this matchup. Yeah, he's $6,000 there. Again, another 30 minutes, had a double-double, second straight game for him. He's going to get the minutes. The price is great given the matchup that he has. So certainly can take a look at him there. Then off their bench, obviously, you have Westbrook coming off of a solid game. Norm got the minutes, still not really the production, though.
Yeah, to the Zubats point, he played 33 minutes and only played 2 first quarter minutes because he had 2 fouls in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
No stats. 0 stats in 2 minutes. So all of that was in 3 quarters, which Dallas is in trouble here against Zubats. Daniel Gafford is questionable after missing practice. So their front court is what? If there's no Gafford, and we talked about it last week, it's Lively Cleaver, right? And as good as Derek Lively is, he's a skinny dude. Zubats is a bruiser. Like he's a big body. That's going to be a really big mismatch on the interior. So if no Gafford, even if there's Gafford, I definitely have interest in Zubats because I think it's not just 33. I think there's probably like 35, 36 minute upside if that we don't see that foul trouble. Westbrook, you mentioned, hey, 24 minutes in a game, Kawhi returned. That's not something we saw very often in the regular season. When they're fully healthy, we did not see a lot of Westbrook alongside everyone. But hey, he's another guy who's been to the finals. He's a very
He can be an offensive spark plug, you know,
Yeah, and I don't hate the minutes. I would probably lean his way over anybody off the bench. I don't hate Norm. I don't hate that he took 10 shots. The first game was like, what are you doing, dude? The problem is he really doesn't do anything else. Like, he has to make shots to be valuable. So, like, where in the regular season 4,400, you're like, oh, well, Norm's going to probably play 30 minutes. Well, if he's not making shots, there's definitely no guarantee he gets to 26 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it's probably Westbrook or bust off the Clippers bench.
All right. Dallas side here. It's still a 2-man show for you?
I do think the Hardaway news being out is a little bit intriguing. And I did mention, like, I gave a little bit of hat tip to PJ Washington last game. Like, largely, yes. Luka, 61, 58 fantasy points. He's been really good. Kyrie wasn't as good, but 8,400. If you get 40 fantasy points out of him, you're happy there. PJ was good again. 10 shots, 35 minutes, 18 and 6, 2 blocks and a steal. I mean, they're using him as one of their primary on-ball defenders, so definitely could get to some PJ Washington. I do think it's a little bit interesting if there's no Daniel Gafford with like the Kleba Lively stuff, because Kleba's been the guy that they've gone to. He's played 20 and 27 minutes in 2 games. He is obviously much lower floor than Derek Lively. Like, Derek Lively comes in, lob, offensive rebound, block, lob. Like, that's what he does. Yeah. He's a very active player. I'm just not sure how he holds up against Zubats in this game. And, he's also, there was a long absence for him too. He hadn't played before the playoffs since the 31st. So 3-week absence before these 2 games. So if there's no Gafford, I'm definitely a little bit interested in Kleba Lively. We did see with no Tim Hardaway, Derek Jones get 32 minutes, which was something that I thought they were going to do in game 1. And of course, I played Derek Jones in game 1.
Right.
Derek Jones in game 1, he had more fantasy points and just rebounds in game 2 than he had all of game 1. But there's no Hardaway. So Derek Jones is one of their better perimeter defenders. They're going to use him, I think, a lot. Josh Green, not really in the rotation. Dante Exum, they kind of just exiled. So it's Luka, Kyrie for sure. PJ Washington, you could definitely get to. And then I think Derek Jones is a solid value with no Tim Hardaway. And then it just depends on Gafford, right? If there's no Gafford, you could probably get to Kleba. You could probably get to Derek Lively.
Sure. Last game here, Minnesota Phoenix, Anthony Edwards at 9K. Again, solid game. Scoring wise, not so much as 3 of 12, but overall getting you 40 fantasy points thanks to blocks and steals, the 8 assists and 5 rebounds. Gobert, Towns, 72-71, but you mentioned McDaniels at the top of the show. 25 actual, 41 minutes, 10 of 17 from a guy that we don't consider to be an offensive threat.
Yo, they got Kevin Durant, but we got Jaden McDaniels. That's literally the Anthony Edwards quote. And I don't know how many people took him serious. I don't even know if he took himself serious, obviously, because it's been well documented who Anthony Edwards' favorite player of all time is. It's Kevin Durant. But I mean, look, he was really popular last game, and you and I talked about it. He was cheap and he played 38 minutes. You don't get that in the postseason. You don't get cheap and minutes combined in the postseason. Right. And when you do, even if they're not like a high fantasy point per minute guy, there's just a case to play them, right? Because they're going to be on the floor where like if I'm playing Obi Toppin, I don't know how many minutes Obi Toppin's going to play. If Jaden McDaniels had a foul trouble, he's playing 40 minutes. Like it's right there. So yeah, I think he's going to be really popular. He just needs to stay out of foul trouble, right? That's the Jaden McDaniels in a nutshell. Has not been that guy offensively and I don't think he will be, but he just needs to stay out of foul trouble because what's on the other side of the floor can obviously just go nuclear at any time.
Right. Where are you going then? What do you like of the Gobert, Towns, Conley, bench guys after them? Like obviously Edwards is Edwards, but do you have another favorite play here?
Yeah, dude, Rudy Gobert. There's no reason to go to Towns right now. The minutes have been down on Towns, and Rudy's been great. I mean, 40 minutes again, 40 fantasy points again in the most shocking night of rebounding in Rudy Gobert's career, where I had both me and Iggy Gilbert both took Gobert rebound props on the same night. Iggy waterfalled it in his article. I bet at 13, he had 9. And guess
Yeah.
what? He had 18 actual points
Yeah.
because he's been aggressive offensively with no Towns. Like Towns has played barely any minutes in this series because they've just haven't really needed him. He's been in foul. He had big foul trouble last game. 27 and 24 minutes. He's obviously not fully healthy either after, a meniscus tear. I mean, they don't need to extend him up 2-0. So it's definitely Gobert. I did think that this game of Mike Conley was coming, and I would go right back to the well with Mike Conley again. 32 minutes. He missed all his shots in game 1, but anytime you see Mike Conley double-digit shot attempts, it's worth noting, right? Because he's not going to go 2 of 12 again. And all Mike Conley said, he's like, all I want to do is win. Mike Conley on the year, 45% from the floor, 44% from 3. If that's your third option and people are just gonna let Mike Conley shoot, if Phoenix is gonna hey, Mike, take 13 shots again. Well, he goes 7 to 13, 3 of 6. You're in a really good spot because he's gonna do things peripherally to get you there. So I do like Mike Conley. We talked about McDaniels. Although Naz Reid just won 6th Man of the Year, he has not really been great in this series. I don't think it's the series for him personally. So
We also know his extended minutes come when Towns or Gobert
Gobert
off the
hurt.
floor, right?
Yeah.
The whole team's healthy, so he's capped there. So
I agree, but also it just doesn't feel like they're not even double bigging. They gave NAW 31 minutes again, right? They're going small, kind of, with just Gobert. That's their lone big, where they're playing Nas teens minutes. They played Gobert, or they played Towns 24 minutes. Dude, NAW, if NAW is going to play anywhere between 29 and 31 minutes again, he's going to once again be one of the more popular values. Minnesota has a ton of value to one of the better, I think, teams to in general. Edwards, Gobert at the top, Conley, McDaniels, and NAW kind of value mid-tier for sure.
Sure. Then we got to go down to Phoenix here. Obviously, you mentioned likely no Grayson Allen. You mentioned
potentially, but second straight
ankle
game
injury.
he's left with the ankle. Yeah.
Kidding. Royce O'Neal, he's only played 17 minutes in the game, 23 minutes for Eric Gordon. Durant's 8,200, Booker's 81, Bradley Beal 64. So good pricing wise.
It's great pricing. I expect, it's been, Bradley Beal's the most popular of the three because he's the cheapest. But it's just a really tough. This is a tough draw for Phoenix, right? It's them falling to Minnesota. If Minnesota keeps scoring the way that they do, they could beat Denver in a series, right? Because they're the best defensive team left in the playoffs. So I'm good with getting Durant in tournaments. I'm good with Booker. I'm good with Beal. Nurkic has been fine too. 33 fantasy points last game, and they're extending him. They're actually giving him minutes. So I'm good with any of the top 4. I do think it's interesting. I would not play Grayson Allen even if he played, just given how the ankle has not held up. He did practice on Thursday, so for what that's worth. Eric Gordon looked really good the other day, and Royce O'Neal did not. I would suspect they would start Royce O'Neal. But obviously, based on how game 2 went, they might start Gordon. Gordon was way, way better. And O'Neal got benched in favor of him. So I'm good with either. I probably lean the starter in that scenario, but obviously looking at Eric Gordon in game 2, he was just flat out better. 5 for 9, 3 for 5 from 3. So I'm good with getting to either of Grayson sits. Probably just play the starter. Also, just will probably depend on your roster construction. Shooting guard's been a terrible position for most of the postseason. I feel I've been every time I'm like, this doesn't feel like it, because you look at the first 15 names on the shooting guard list and everyone has a multi-position eligibility. So, I guess I'll just lean the starter in that scenario.
Okay. Let's build then. We're what's our number one plug here? Is it Siakam?
Yeah, Siakam fairly easily.
All right, next play.
I want some Minnesota value. NEW 4,100. Jaden McDaniels 46. I'd play them both. I'd play Conley. Like I like any of those three guys. 5,500 or below.
I feel better with the guards, offensively wise. I don't think we get the offense from McDaniel.
I don't either. It's more so about if he
the
goes
minutes,
off.
Yeah, but I don't know there. Conley, Siakam, I put Zubac in. We were high on him there in that matchup, regardless if he was at center for Dallas. NAW, so that gives us 65-25 for a play here.
Shooting guard, you could always play NAW there as well. Patrick Beverley 47.
Okay. Small forward 77K. Kawhi 7,800.
The answer is Kawhi if we feel like he's healthy. Which
the minutes make me feel like he is good to go. Maybe Turner, and then we go 7,100 forward again.
Definitely not good to go. He didn't look. 7,100.
Bobby Poe, PJ Washington.
If you go, we have a lot of money. Go PJ, and then we can.
I mean, was there? Did you want Gobert over Zubac?
I do like Rudy quite a bit.
All right, well there we go. $300 left over. We got Conley, Beverly, Leonard, Siakam, Gobert, NEW, Washington, and Turner. Gives us 3 Minnesota, 1 Milwaukee, 2 Indiana, 1 Dallas, 1 Clippers. All righty. There's your example lineup, everybody. Grande will be on your playbook, so make sure you check that out over on Fantasy Alarm. Get us in the Discord. Find us on Twitter if you have any questions. Till then, everybody, we will catch you guys next time.
This is the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Show.